Read the disclaimer. Doofus. And please contact us through this email address with questions or fan art. Thank you for your support.
Nice to be coming back to the channel after being bound and gagged in the corner for a week, and to celebrate both the fact that I'm back and the fact that, well, my channel reached 350 subscribers, let's do something appropriate and review something from the SS86 line. Salutations, denizens of the internet! I'm Firebite27, and let us commence our analysis of Transformers Studio Series 86, Leader Class Grimlock. And Wheelie is here, I guess, too. When it comes to discussing animation-accurate alternate modes in Transformers figures, I generally have 4 or 5 reactions that range from, oh my god, this is amazing, to, okay, this is cool, but the paint really needs to be improved to pick out some of the details here, fellas, to, okay, we got a really good accurate alt mode, but a boring robot mode, to, oh god, kill it with fire immediately before it reproduces, what were you even thinking? And with the advent of SS86, my reactions have tended to lie on the 2 extreme ends of the spectrum, either refusing to buy figures because they look boring or ugly to me, or drooling at the mouth because they look like the coolest things since, well, the visual equivalent of sliced bread. In short, if I don't have one of those 4-ish, 5-ish reactions, then the figure kinda stands out to me. Especially when that quote-unquote unusual reaction happens to be me profusely chuckling at a figure's alternate mode for the better part of an hour after I first transformed it. Oh, and just so I don't have to cover it later, here's a mini review of Wheelie. He sucks. You might as well throw him away. 0 out of 10. Okay, he's not totally terrible. There's a solid foundation that you could work with here. However, the reason he's so bad is because they've gimped his articulation somewhat. And I'm not talking about giving him no elbows and knees. I think giving him totally straight limbs would have been perfectly fine and would have looked good and would have helped me pose him more. But nope. A majority of his limbs are sculpted at strange angles, which makes it incredibly hard to pose him. And I think he would have made a better accessory if A, they had given him posable joints, or B, allowed him to transform, or just given him straight limbs that were completely static. And I feel exceptionally cheesed off because it's such an easy fix, but all they can do right now in terms of posing is the whip and the dab. So not only is he a useless character in universe who is the literal embodiment of all things cringy that are related to poetry, but in real life, his articulation is the embodiment of cringe-inducing dances. Honestly, I would have preferred seeing him die in the 86 movie as opposed to, say, you know, Optimus Prime. Would have been really funny to see him get eaten to death by Sharkticons. Heck, why don't we replace Cliffjumper with Wheelie as the Autobot that needs to die every single series in order to prove that the Decepticons are evil? I mean, who wouldn't want to see the rhyme-obsessed, brain-dead little brother of the annoying orange put to death constantly? Not to mention that the one accessory for this accessory is a slingshot that might as well not exist because it's so small. And the worst part is that this came with the figure instead of a sword. Anyways, enough of me whining for the time being, let's talk about this absolute Dorkrannosaurus Rex. And I do mean dork because there's absolutely nothing threatening about this T-Rex mode. It's not Beast Wars Megatron, it's just a big, dumb, silly robot dinosaur. And I think my favorite part about this dinosaur mode is that it uses Sunbow Toon Accuracy to such great effect. What I mean is that Grimlock uses it as a jumping off point, a springboard of sorts, as opposed to a crutch to justify its lazy design choices. Though I suppose it's preferable to what the Walmart reissues of the Titans Return Headmasters did, giving all ugly-ass simplistic faces to figures with complicated mechanical designs. Fortunately though, Grimlock didn't suffer from any of this, and instead, his design came out really clean and rather adorable. But that begs an important question. What makes Sunbow Toon Accuracy work in some instances, but fail in others? Honestly, I can't say that I've definitively cracked the code on what elements of the figure's design lead me to believe that paying the full retail price is worth it, but I do think that I have identified a few qualifications. First of all, molded detail. I think the inference I make first and foremost by detail like this is that the designer actually gave a shit. Speaking as both an artist and graphic designer, I can tell you firsthand that adding a lot of detail like this really isn't efficient. The more detail you add, the more likely it is that your audience won't be able to process all of that information that you're presenting to them and just get overwhelmed. What I'm trying to say here is that you have to have a lot of creative motivation and interest in the project in order to make it this detailed. Most of the time. What I'm saying is that it feels more like a labor of love as opposed to a corporate cash grab. Qualification number 2, the quality of the materials used to construct the figure. Earthrise RC is somewhat like Studio Series 86 Grimlock in that she has an unnecessary amount of detail molded into parts of her, such as her backpack. However, here's the catch. The plastic is so weak and soft on those figures that the detail just gets swallowed up. The plastic on SS86 Grimlock, conversely, is incredibly hard and registers every single minor detail to the point where you don't need me to make an extreme close-up shot in order to get the point across. Except for the Games Workshop grade they used on the Tyrannosaurus arms. Though considering the fact that you can see most of the molded detail anyways, it's not really an issue. And the final qualification, the amount of paint present on the figure. I'll just cut straight to the chase. This dummy thick Dino has a lot of paint on it. There's a ton of gold, a ton of red, and whatever the heck those thingies on the back of the tail are. But according to the renders on the back of the box, this gold paint might actually be obscuring some more details. I genuinely don't know if this is the case. I haven't really used my tiny screwdriver to open up the neck and find out. And speaking of the tail...
Damn, boy, he's thick! Boy, that's a thick-ass boy!
Like, the tail is straight up legit twice as wide as it needs to be. But is that really a problem? No, not really. It's just a compromise that they had to make for the sake of the robot mode, and in this case, I'm totally fine with it. Furthermore, this compromise specifically led to one of the best aspects of the robot mode, so making it more proportionate for the sake of the T-Rex mode would have likely ruined it. But I'll explain that when we actually get to the robot mode. As we still haven't discussed one of the best aspects of this dinosaur mode, its articulation.
In T-Rex mode, Grimlock possesses a rotating neck, a hinge at the back of the head to look up and down, an opening jaw, ball-jointed shoulders, hinged elbows, ratcheted hips, outward spread, thigh rotation, knee bend, toe, and ankle articulation.
So overall, the articulation of Grimlock's T-Rex mode is fantastic, and he is very well balanced, which means that you can get him into some quote-unquote realistic poses for a T-Rex, though it just makes it look like he's doing his business in the backyard. And I guess it's just solid proof that beast mode articulation standards have improved since the advent of their creation. I mean, how many dinosaurs do you know that can do the torture dance?
Big Grimlock, what golden wind?
I guess what I'm trying to say is that in short, Grimlock feels like a return to form for the leader size class. Because as much as I enjoyed figures like Siege/Earthrise Astro Train and also Siege Shockwave, I cannot refute the argument that they were basically just Voyagers with a bunch of extra crap tacked on. And while Earthrise Double Dealer could have served this role as the return to form for the leader class, it was sadly marred by a bunch of incompetence on the part of the designers. But in terms of its overall design, plastic quality, and also just general size, I can safely say that this is a true return to form. Just a big, fun, dumb, chunky figure that you can play around with. Though I do have to wonder why this was released around the same time as another leader class transforming Tyrannosaurus, that being Kingdom Megatron, at least the Beast version. Not that I'm complaining about having two very big and very fantastic Tyrannosaurus Rex figures around all of a sudden, even in spite of the fact that I have yet to own Beast Wars Megatron, or at least the Kingdom figure. Oh, and one more feature to discuss before we move on to the size comparisons. He actually has a blast effect port in his mouth. Anyways, here's Studio Series 86 Grimlock next to my last review, Generation Selects Cordon and Spinout, the last 86 movie character I reviewed, Kingdom Cyclonus, Earthrise RC for reasons that will be relevant later, the other SS86 figure that I have in my collection currently, Cup, an important moment from the 86 movie, Optimus Prime's corpse.
No, it's resting, look.
Look, my lad, I know a dead
Autobot Commander.
when I see one, and I'm looking at one right now.
A standard Qtama, a standard can of sparkling water, and a Broadside. So overall, yeah, this T-Rex one is great. I don't know how many more ways I can praise it, so instead of trying to continue to praise it, I'm just gonna move on to the robot mode. Much like his dinosaur mode, Studio Series 86 Grimlock's robot mode is heavily influenced by the Sunbow animation model. And much like said dinosaur mode, the G1 Cartoon Accuracy card is very well played. Though I can't help but feel as though this is a downsizing of another Grimlock's transformation. Could be Masterpiece, could be Gigapower, it could be Fans Project for all the diddly shits I give. And I just realized that I said the term diddly shits unironically. What is this channel coming to again? You know what? Whatever. Let's just talk about the flaws right now so I don't have to talk about them later and bum myself out, okay? Don't worry, I haven't forgotten the fact that you can't technically verbally respond to that question, so we're gonna move on to the flaws. First problem that's really more of a nitpick than an actual genuine problem is that the feet are hollow. The only reason why this isn't an actual problem and just nitpick is because, well, the rest of the legs keep him well supported, and the base that they provide is wide enough to do some pretty stupid crap that I'll cover later on, so yeah, this isn't really much of a problem. Not to mention that this is the only part of the figure that's visibly hollow, so great work, design team. Second problem is the gun. It just kinda looks bland. Not to mention that the only place where you can store it that isn't the hands is on the back. You can either put it into this little hole in the backpack, but it sure doesn't like staying there, I'll tell you that much, or you can clip it onto the T-Rex arms. And again, not a very secure connection. Then we have this Autobot logo, which is almost impossible to perceive behind this smoky translucent plastic. I'd also imagine that there are some copies of this figure that have trouble tabbing in the chest and shoulders into the top of the torso, but mine doesn't, so I don't see it as a current issue. Not to mention, this backpack is hideous. Yes, I am quite aware that the backpack T-Rex head is a quite popular element of the Grimlock character design, but it still doesn't change the fact that it's kibble, A, and B, it's a quite lazy design choice. However, I must commend the designers of Grimlock once again, mostly because they had the foresight to add a pair of hinges to the kibble wings on the backpack to ensure that they got out of the way of basically any pose you were trying to get Grimlock into. Don't like how the wings look spread? Just move them to the back and out of the way entirely so they're not visible from the front. Want to pretend Grimlock has his own personal built-in hang glider? All you need to do is splay out the kibble doors a little. And as I mentioned in the dinosaur mode, the detail is utterly astounding. Combine this with the multitude of weapon ports on the figure, and you've got a pretty solid argument that maybe this wasn't intended for SS86 at all. In all honesty, I can see something like this totally fitting in with something like Earthrise or Kingdom. Meanwhile, I can see something like Kingdom Ultra Magus fitting more into the SS86 line compared to this. And honestly, I think detail helps to define two broader categories of Transformers these days. There are the figures that use Sunbow Toon Accuracy as a jumping off point to do their own thing and make magnificently sculpted details, And then there are the figures that use Sunbow Toon Accuracy as an excuse for why their painting and sculpting leaves them about as well defined as this crappy mug thingy that I made out of clay in 2nd grade. It was meant to look like my favorite Muppet Gonzo, but instead it came out looking like a bloody-eyed abomination against nature. SS86 Grimlock and SS86 Cup can both be said to be accurate to the Sunbow animation models, but at the same time, they make sure to take their own deviations to ensure that the figures remain visually interesting. Not to mention Grimlock's articulation makes him one of the most expressive and nimble figures I have ever seen in my life. Take it away, Maya.
In robot mode, Grimlock possesses a ball-jointed head, kibble wings that hinge vertically and splay horizontally, rotating shoulders, outward spread, swiveling biceps, bend at the elbows, wrist rotation, waist rotation, legs kick forwards and backwards, and spread from the hip, thighs rotate, knees bend, and ankles pivot.
My favorite part of this figure are undoubtedly the legs, and not in a horny way. Stay the hell away from this channel, DeviantArt. The first element I like is that they seamlessly incorporate the tail into the transformation. You'd basically have no idea of what they turn into in the dinosaur mode. And the second thing I like is how broad the feet are. It makes him incredibly stable. In a mere static A stance, he can support the weight of both of his creators, Beachcomber and Slash. However, if you increase the surface area that the arms occupy by spreading them outwards along with the kibble wings, you can support not only the weight of his creators, Beachcomber and Slash, but also all of this! Seaspray, Cosmos, Warpath, Wheelie, Cyclonus, a Senator, another goddamn T-Rex, Cheetor, your grandpa, Rotor Storm, a Sharkticon, and on top, an orange for dessert. And I'd like to point out that I did all of this without the need for extra supports or figure stands. Suck on that, Earthrise RC. The wide base of the feet gives him plenty of room to do tons of silly crap, such as the Torture Dance Part 2, and even the Kozlowski's Kick. And overall, I'd have to say, this figure, freaking magnificent. So let's close out this gush fest with some size comparisons. Here's Studio Series 86 Grimlock next to Cordon and Spinout, Cyclonus, RC, SS86 Cup, Dedimus Prime, a standard Qtama, a standard can of sparkling water, and Broadside. So overall, can I recommend SS86 Grimlock? Yes and no. Yes, he is amazing, but there are a few issues that hold him back from getting a 10 out of 10. Allow me to explain. First of all, we have the gun. This gun is actually alright to me, but I do agree with a lot of people in that there should have been a better place to store it than on the T-Rex mode's arms and on the back of the tail. Second of all, I'm also going to just say it, this tail is too wide. I like that it's too wide, but it certainly is an issue here. Then we've also got the fact that there really should have been a way to just plug it onto the back and just have it act as like a turret for Wheelie to ride on. Not to mention, Wheelie shouldn't have even been included in the first place, and he should have just come with a sword. Or at least Wheelie should have had articulated elbows and knees. I've gotten so steamed over the fact that Wheelie was denied decent articulation that I actually designed an upgrade kit for him. It's not functional at the moment, but I am going to try and make it so that people can actually fix something that's broken in this set, because it is on the border of getting a 10 out of 10. But with all of these minor issues piling up on top of each other, I have to give it a 9 out of 10. And I don't want to hate this figure, mostly because it is in a three-way race with two other extraordinary figures that could very easily become my #1 favorites of the year. And unfortunately, with all these flaws, I have to give it a 9 out of 10, and I don't want to do that. Additionally, I would like to design, or have someone else design for me, a pair of arms that have articulated biceps and possibly articulated wrists, mostly because I think that would add a lot more to the Beast Mode's expression. But that's not as important as fixing the issues of the no sword, the gun, and the Wheelie. So, with that being said, this is Firebite 27 over and out.